Welcome everybody to this week's meeting. It was nice to get to talk about, nice isn't probably the right word, but I appreciate everybody talking about what's going on in their lives right now, and that you're making time to come together for fellowship and to learn from our speaker today. It really feels good to, even though we're not in person, it feels really good to have us all together. So appreciate that. So let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, I'll pull that up.
So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I neglected to mention, if you have a guest or visiting Rotarian or an announcement, if you'd put that in the chat box for me, please, as we go through our business part of our program. So first off, past Assistant Governor Renee Campbell, words of inspiration for us today.
Thank you, President Sue. Did you ever feel like people are shouting at each other over the top of your head from two or many different directions? Oversimplifying that conversation, it might sound something like this. Listen to me, give me what I want, and I want it now. On the other side, no, you are wrong and I am right. I will get what I want, and when I win, you lose. Then there's me, and probably most of us, somewhere in the middle, trying to sort out the noise from the issues, whether it's from the streets, print, the airwaves, cyberspace, or even close family and friends. The amount of information and disinformation we are trying to process sometimes makes my head swim. We're trying to identify and hear those with legitimate questions and concerns, and we try to quiet the voices who are taking advantage of the resulting instability, creating confusion, fear, and chaos. For what? For their own gain? For some other hidden agenda? Rotary is not a political nor a religious organization, but we are living right in the middle of the social and political unrest everyone else is living in. And I am thankful for the strong moral compass we have that unites us, no matter what we believe otherwise, the four-way test. And we welcome all who want to serve and will commit to follow it as we do. We as Rotarians listen carefully and respectfully to try to discern truth without fear or disdain of someone else's opinion, story, or position. The other side of that is that when we share information, it is the truth to the very best of our knowledge. We've always been at the leading edge of seeking fair solutions beneficial to all, but we pay special attention to projects and initiatives that level the playing field and give a leg up when an equal opportunity could make all the difference in someone's future success in life. And can anyone disagree with the need for building goodwill and better friendships at this time? I am so proud to be a Rotarian and count you as my friends. There are several difficult conversations and challenges before us, and we have been exploring them in our recent programs: homelessness, hunger, disaster relief, diversity, health, education, liberty and justice for all, peace and protection for all. My prayer for us today is that we will continue to have these conversations with each other and in our communities, using the four-way test as our guide, with dignity and respect for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Very important. Thank you. So moving on to visiting Rotarians, we have Mark Collier with us. He's visiting from Kaiser, and he is our Salem Region Assistant District Governor. So welcome, Mark, whatever screen you're on. Welcome. There you are. Good to see you. Club announcements. Ryan, you had an announcement you wanted to make.
Madam President, I believe somebody mentioned they have a guest on the chat window.
Oh, thank you.
I have a guest, Renee.
Okay, thank you.
A visiting Rotarian guest, past District Governor Larry Hatch from the Rotary Club of Forest Grove Daybreak. Larry served as an MP in Vietnam and 13 years then as a police officer, and the last 28 years in the Washington County 911 Dispatch Center, retiring as the Assistant Director. He is also a friend of our speaker today. So please welcome Larry Hatch.
Welcome, Larry. Good to have you. All right. So back to you, Ryan, for Good Works announcement.
Madam President and fellow Rotarians, we on the Good Works Fundraising Committee are exploring potentially doing a virtual Good Works fundraising event in 2021. And quite frankly, we would love your help with ideas and possibly doing that virtual event. We actually have and Madam President, I'm going to combine this as a bell ringer too, because there's a line I'm about to cross. We have a timely opportunity next week. I am a table captain for a virtual event that Liberty House is putting on for the Champions for Children. And Liberty House is using a more intimate format, allowing personal presentations for, quote, tables, and also then a larger public broadcast event on September 17th. My scheduled personal presentation is on noon, Tuesday the 15th. If anyone is interested, any Rotarians are interested in joining us, one, to support Liberty House, a great local organization, but two, to witness a virtual event and then be available to maybe discuss potential options for Good Works, would you please privately message me or email me, and I will include you. You can join us both at the personal one on the 15th. If that doesn't work for you, you can also try the public one, and then that will help facilitate some discussions in the coming weeks about what can Rotary do. So thanks again, personal message or email, and I'm happy to invite you. Thank you for being a good Rotarian.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Well done combo there. So next up, we have Lauren Gutierrez for a member moment.
Sorry, I ran away for a second, but I'm back.
How long you came back?
So we are picking up again with our greeting opportunities, and you guys have already heard from Selma Pierce, but today she's going to do round two. We always allowed 2 sets of greetings when heading towards the blue badge. So she's going to do round 2 today. She's going to answer 5 questions. The questions are: what is the best job or role you've ever had? How many states have you visited? How many sticky notes do you use in a week? Where did you go on your first plane ride? And what's your favorite picture in your library and who took it? And that's World Library. So it can be on your wall, in a photo album, stuck in a camera somewhere on the phone. So Selma, take it away.
So my best role I've ever had is actually being a part of a family, whether it's my own family or a community family, because it's about giving, sharing, and love. I've been to 20 states in the United States, and believe it or not, I think I had never gone to New York City till about 5 years ago. So it's like, that's good, but a lot of other states are good too. So how many sticky notes do I use in a week? About 30. So I'm parsing out because they're expensive and I don't want to use them too fast. So where did I go on my first plane ride? I went to Hong Kong. Actually, my mom was from Hong Kong and she got married, and she didn't get to go back to visit her family for 12 years because at that time it was expensive to go. But she thought it was very important for all of us to go and visit our grandparents. And so she actually spent about a year working at night to be able to pay for our tickets. And so I want to say thank you, Mom. So what's my favorite picture? Really, my favorite picture is probably some of the ones I took because I'm behind the camera a lot. And we used to go backpacking a lot. And it's just cool to go backpacking because you are basically out in nature. You're part of something bigger than yourself. And it puts you in perspective about your place in the world and keeps you humble. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Selma. That was great. And a reminder for all other people looking for their blue badge, we will do greeters every week. So just hit me up and I will get you the questions.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you, Selma, for sharing. So next up, we have Allison Kelly with bell ringers, both to be read and some videos, at least one video bell ringer. So Allison, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you. Can you all hear me? It's kind of a complicated day, so I am looking at a couple things real quick. And I'm going to go back, starting our bell ringers off with Selma Pierce. And Selma says, I'd like to do a bell ringer for the people who are impacted by the fires and all of the people in organizations that are helping our communities get through this very trying time. If you want to help, please contact your local Red Cross or the United Way of the Mid-Willamette Valley to donate goods or money. May everyone stay safe. Together we'll get through this. And she says she'll be donating $100 to Bell Ringers Salem Rotary Foundation and through the United Way. So President Sue, please ring the bell. And I am gonna try to, all right, good. So I also wanted to just backtrack and remind everybody that it's Salem Rotary Foundation Month, and every September we highlight all the good work of the Salem Rotary Foundation that accomplishes and offer everybody the opportunity to improve the lives of at-risk children and people in our community through the match. So each of your $20 bell ringers will be matched by generous Rotarians and local businesses, but not just once. Each week, our match donor will match up to $240, and each super match donor will match up to $500 or even $1,000. And so today, Richard Pine of Evergreen Charitable Trust is doing our $240 match, and Ozzy Rose is doing our $500 super match. And so I am doing one bell ringer. I'm doing 3 today, but one of them is in honor of Richard and Ozzy. So thank you for doing that matching. And I think so far we're trying to get to 12 each week, and I think we're up to 10. So anyway, so President Sue, please ring the bell for that. Thank you. And then Pam Wasson is ringing the bell for Brenna Bockham for her professional and speedy response to incoming questions on our Facebook page, as well as her calm, take charge manner with all things technical, so that our weekly Zoom meetings run smoothly. President Sue, please ring the bell for Brenna Bockham. The next one, I have Sue Bloom and Sherry Patterson are ringing the bell because Robin Kerner will be joining the Boys and Girls Club team later this month as their new Chief Development Officer. Congratulations, everybody. The staff and board are excited to work alongside Robin, whose skills and experience greatly complements our current resource development team. That sounds awesome. Robin is just one of those people that just, you can't help but smile when you see her. So congratulations,
Exactly.
That's great. President Sue, please ring the bell for you and Sherry and Robin. And then Sue Bloom is ringing the bell, President Sue, for our Rotary Board of Directors for the care, concern, and dedication to our club. In spite of pending evacuations, COVID, and other challenges, most all were facing last night, we had a robust discussion on ways we can be creative to ensure all club members feel engaged and involved in meaningful ways during our ongoing reality. President Sue, please ring the bell for Brenna, Claudia, David, Farah, Holly, Justin, Kelly, Robin, Ryan, Steve, Chuck, and Tammy. All right. And the next one is from Brenda Kidder. Brenda would like to ring the bell for United Way of the Mid-Willamette Valley for their quick response to the fire evacuations. They have already collected $7,000 toward their $20,000 goal to help with community needs and have set up a collection site for needed items for evacuees as well. The conference room is filling up with pet food, tents, diapers, water, and many other desperately needed items. Currently, new blankets and pillows are the most needed. Nothing used due to COVID restrictions. For a full list, please visit the United Way of the Mid-Willamette Valley Facebook page. President Sue, please ring the bell. And I am doing my second bell ringer in honor of all the firefighters and first responders who are working 24/7 to protect life and keep people safe. We are mindful of all those who have been evacuated. We personally have some friends who lost everything in the Mill City area. And we know some people I've seen posting on Facebook who've lost relatives already who died during that fire. So as Rotarians, may we do everything we can to step up and meet the need. President Sue, please ring the bell. And I'm doing my third bell ringer for Liberty House, our really brave employees. You might be surprised to know that our intake phone calls are still ringing off the hook this week as of even today. And so our employees are fighting through their own stress and anxiety and evacuations to see children in our clinic and therapy programs. The referrals just keep coming in spite of it all. And even in spite of last night's vandalism to our building and drug paraphernalia left in our children's gardens. So those people were clearly also suffering. We are, as Ryan said, trying to host our virtual fall fundraiser, a luncheon, and your generous support is definitely needed now more than ever. As you can imagine, like many nonprofits, donations have dropped down a little bit because of the pandemic. And so if you want to consider helping our teams be able to be there for the really vulnerable children, I think they need it now more than ever, and we need it now more than ever. And the easiest thing to do is just go on our website, libertyhousecenter.org. There are things right on that front page about donating and also about joining our luncheon on the 17th. So thank you. And many of you are great Liberty House supporters, and we're really, really, really grateful. So President Sue, please ring the bell. And then I'm gonna honor Ryan Collier. So we caught you, Ryan. Thank you for that. And then I guess I'll do a fourth one. I'm gonna probably have to leave the meeting a little early. We live about halfway to the beach, and we just found out there's a fire burning near my house. So I need to head out and finish doing a little bit of packing up, which we've already started. So with that, we do have one video bell ringer today that I understand, and that is from John McCulley. So go ahead. Oh, and then Jane is saying, did I get hers? And I did not. So maybe while we're playing the video, Jane, you can put it in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to share the video.
Ringing the bell for all of the good works funded by the Salem Rotary Foundation. In its 51 years of existence, the foundation has contributed more than $1 million to various community organizations and projects that really have made Salem and our community a better place. Ring the bell for the Salem Rotary Foundation.
Okay. And then we've got one more from Sue is saying that Warren would like to ring the bell for Selma. And that's such a great endorsement. So please ring the bell for that. I think that takes us to 11. And then Jane, I think we're expecting one from Jane, which would take us to 12. And whoever is doing the math and the accounting, yes, I will go online later this afternoon to make my donations directly. So Jane, do you want me to wait a little bit longer?
I'm typing it in, so don't wait.
Okay.
It'll be in the chat box.
Okay, so we will just honor the bell ringer that Jane is in the process of doing. President Sue, please ring bell.
That works. That works.
Awesome. And thank you all for your support and stay safe.
Yeah. Take care, Allison.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to past President Tim for a Salem Rotary Foundation moment.
Okay, thank you. Will someone wave and tell me that you can hear me? Okay.
We can hear you.
Good. It's my pleasure to once again give the history of the Salem Rotary Foundation, as I originally wrote it about 8 years ago and have modified it since. So, Salem Rotary Foundation was incorporated 51 years ago in March of 1969 by club leaders Irvin Potter, Bruce Williams, and Hugh Morrow. The foundation was founded, quote, to establish, promote, maintain, and conduct a charitable, benevolent, eleemosynary, cultural, and education foundation for fostering, developing, and promoting and encouraging the health, education, and general welfare, primarily of young people in the Salem area. During those early years, the foundation was primarily used as a vehicle to raise scholarship dollars to help students at Willamette University. And it was mostly pay as you go, sometimes by passing the hat, but at least the donations were tax deductible. In about 1977 or 1978, club past president Ellis von Eschen, one of the principals of Salem Iron and Steel Works, and likely one of the few Rotarians to ever drive a Rolls Royce, was terminally ill. He took younger Rotarian Bill Meyer aside and told him to, quote, take care of this foundation, which at that point consisted of $1,700 in a passbook savings account. Mm-hmm. Bill did indeed take care of the foundation and served as secretary treasurer for 32 years. Under his and others' stewardship, the principal grew to over $250,000. $50,000 came from Dr. Ernest Duval in gratitude for a scholarship our club had given him years before. There were some substantial gifts from Rotarians Mike Carrick, Wally Whitwer, and Russ Bogart, and many smaller donations from many Rotarians. Over those 32 years, most of the actual dividend and interest income and a portion of the annual donations were spent on dozens of grants to local organizations. Since 1979, locally owned Pioneer Trust has helped us invest our funds for a better return than we were getting on that passbook savings account. No one has done more for our foundation in various ways than Bill Meyer, who earned the club Service Above Self Award in 2010 and continues to be a huge help to the current Secretary Treasurer, that would be me, to this day. He, along with Mike Carrick, Bill Hansen, Susanna Owens, Larry Connick, and myself, belong to our benefactor circle. Now this is where it gets a little more interesting. On New Year's morning 2010, then club president Mary Beth Bell woke up, perhaps with a small headache, and with two thoughts similar to those of past and future club presidents. One was, oh joy, I'm half done. The other was, oh crap, we need to raise $50,000 for our major good works project. At about this time, Kim Arbuckle, longtime president of our foundation, and Bill Meyer had decided to step down from leadership positions with the foundation. Kim came to Mary Beth and said something like, how can we get the club to better support the foundation? Mary Beth thought it sure would be nice to have enough foundation income to relieve some of this fundraising pressure. Foundation board members Mary Way and Susanna Owens made a presentation to the club board, and the next thing you know, Mary Beth convened a foundation task force consisting of Ellen Wyant, Marve Bean, Don Bostwick, Ken Von Osdal, Chuck Swank, Amy LaFleur, Larry Gray, and myself. The consensus was to move the foundation to the center of club life and to set an ambitious goal while continuing to generously fund grants to community organizations. The goal was set at $1 million in 10 years, which seemed a little crazy at the time. Furthermore, our goal was to earn an average of 8% on our invested funds while spending 5% on qualified grants each year. This formula alone allows for some growth, but to reach our goal, we also needed to fundraise about $50,000 a year. As most of you know, we do this via bell ringers, speaker recognition, small donations from club members, matching funds, major gifts, and including gifts from estates. The club also sets aside part of its Good Works fundraiser each year to reinvest in the foundation. Tragically, as this new era started, new foundation president Marv A. Bean died of a massive heart attack. Past club president Larry Gray accepted the challenge to lead the foundation board. Larry did a terrific job, and we grew $370,000 or 139% under his leadership. Mary Beth Bell took over leadership from Larry, followed by Don Bostwick, Doug Parham, last year John McCulley, and currently Jane Downing. Our growth has been excellent, and we reached our $1 million goal a year early, and we finished our decade at $1,105,000. I would also like to mention the generous board service of Tom McGurr, Ellen Wyant, Susanna Owens, Sue Bloom, John Shirley, John McCulley, Barry Nelson, Linda Wooters, and Mary Way. In fact, Mary was the one who coined the phrase, quote, the charitable heart of the Rotary Club of Salem in describing our foundation. And Russ McCracken and Larry Connick joined the SRF board this year. So as we all know, with money comes politics, also known as the exercise of who gets what. I believe one of the smartest things our foundation did was to give all grant giving authority to the Club Good Works Committee and the club board. In so doing, any member of the club can have a say as to which grants we fund. All you have to do is join the Good Works Committee, ably led by Adam Kohler. Our foundation board only provides oversight to make sure the grant funds are spent in compliance with our bylaws and IRS statutes. So, 51 years after our founding, the Salem Rotary Foundation is making good on our purpose, and our growth has been outstanding. Are we done? I hope not. I think we're just getting started. 51 years from now, when I am 120, I look forward to hearing about all of the good our foundation has done in the community. If I don't make it that long, provision for the foundation has been made in my estate plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, amazing work that's been done through Salem Rotary Foundation, and we all know that we'll continue to do great work in our community. So thank you all that have served and are serving through the foundation, and everyone's contributions to the foundation. We have Deb Jensen did a bell ringer through chat ×2 for firefighters. So giving Deb her bell ringers. Alrighty, we are ready for our program, and so I'd like to turn it over to Bruce Anderson, who will introduce our speaker today. So Bruce, it's all yours.
Thank you, President Sue. Really appreciate it, and good to see y'all. As I was telling another person who works for the Salem Chamber, I am really looking forward to the day that we can all gather back together in person. So anyway, first off, we may not be doing this since we are Zoom, but we're doing it anyway today, and that is I'm going to introduce our head table. We have an outstanding program in store for you today. But first, I want to just introduce our head table. Joining us today, as we heard earlier, is Mark Callier, our Area Assistant Governor. Mark also is a fellow past Kaiser City Councilor with me, and also a fellow Rotary President from 2017-2018 at the Kaiser Club. So really appreciated serving with Mark. He is definitely an epitome of service above self. Mark is also joining in his capacity as for his career, a distinguished career in law enforcement, retiring a few years back from Salem Police Department. And then also, I believe we also have joining us today, Cindy Lanesar, handling community relations for Salem Health. Cindy previously served as Deputy Director of Community Action, which has our area's homeless teen effort, and served as on the Marion County Health Advisory Board. Cindy is also there she is also the current chair for the Salem Police Foundation, doing some incredible things in our community. So welcome our head table today. Now for today's program, Eriks Gabliks began his public safety career in 1980 and currently serves as the director of the Oregon Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, DPSST, and the Oregon Public Safety Academy. Eriks has been with the agency since 1990, beginning as the 911 Training and Certification Program Coordinator, and over the years has held a number of positions at DPSST. DPSST provides basic, specialized, and advanced training and certification to over 35,000 police officers, corrections officers, parole and probation officers, 911 telecommunicators, private security officers, private investigators, fire service professionals, and polygraph examiners. That's a lot. Eriks has a bachelor's degree from Western Oregon University and an executive master's degree from Portland State University. He's a graduate of the National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer Program, the State and Local Leaders Program at the Marco Hatfield School of Government at PSU, as well as the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Program. Eriks is a member of a number of law enforcement professional organizations, including the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training. Please help me welcome Director Gabliks to Rotary, speaking today on what does DPSST do.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the nice introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so we can kind of walk through this discussion with you. So are you seeing it now?
It's coming up.
Okay, so you're good with the PowerPoint there?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me this afternoon, and I was honored to attend your meeting about a year ago when you hosted Larry Hatch, who was a leader statewide with Rotary and was one of our former board members here and a close friend of mine. So it's good to see you, and a lot of you know, like Mark, you and I have worked together for many years, so good to see you again. So let me walk through what DPSST does, and it's pretty straight up. Our mission is to promote excellence in public safety by delivering quality training and developing and upholding professional standards. So we're not a police department, we're not a fire department, we're a state agency, and that's our mission. And our purpose is given to us by the Oregon Legislative Assembly. And that purpose is to establish minimum standards for all disciplines, and we'll talk more about that, to include training, physical, emotional, intellectual, and moral fitness, and the authority to grant certification or licensure when standards are met, and to remove certification or licensure when they aren't. So we are one of Oregon's best kept secrets. And a lot of you may know that we're out here on Almsville Highway in Salem, out toward Corbin University, but our agency has been around for 59 years. And we started in 1961 after civil unrest, not uncommon to what we're seeing here today. But during the Kennedy and Johnson administration, there was a lot of civil unrest at that time too. And one of the things suggested was that we needed, on a national basis, standards through which police officers are trained and certified, and also professional development. So our origin started in 1961 based on civil unrest in our country. And we've done a lot of work since then. So I'm not going to go through the whole list with you, but we started simply as the Police Academy, and most people think of us still as the Police Academy. But we added corrections in 1976 and 1978, parole and probation was added in 1991. The 911 operators and our emergency medical dispatchers were added. In 1993, fire became part of DPSST's mission. In 1995, private security came to us, and they wanted to be held to a professional standard because they are also employees of public and private trust, which is, these are men and women that come to your homes and businesses to make sure your home and business is safe, and you in essence give them a key to your building. So they wanted to professionalize their industry, and they've been with us since 1995. In 2005, private investigators joined the DPSST family. In 2012, Oregon Liquor Control was added to DPSST. And then in 2017, the last thing that I'll share is that we got a significant request by the legislature to do more for our first responders engaging in people in crisis across the state. And we could talk more about that if you wish. So during the introduction, you heard how big the family is that is part of DPSST. So 45,000 constituents, and those numbers are approximate, but the largest group is private security, 21,000. But I think what we really want to spend time today is talking about what everybody's talking about. And I know the wildfires have taken over the discussion for obvious reasons, and we have a number of staff members here affected by that as well. But a lot of the discussion in our country is about policing in America in 2020. So we work with 11,500 criminal justice professionals. Out of that group, about 5,600 are police officers. So they could work for the city, for example, the city of Salem, for Marion County, for special districts, and you might wonder what a special district police officer is. Think of Black Butte Ranch or Sun River, Oregon. Those are not cities per se. Those are special districts that have formed a police department, the Oregon State Police. We have 7 tribes with police departments. We have 3 state universities with police departments. And we also license and train the animal abuse investigators at the Oregon Humane Society. So they have full police officer powers because of the important work that they do. So I'll start with fast fact, and this is either scary or exciting.
I'm sitting up.
I'm sorry. Okay. But
I wanted to.
Go ahead. Was there a question? Okay. So we are in the middle of a turnover of 20% of the law enforcement workforce in Oregon. So the baby boomers are retiring. They've reached the age where they can do that in years of service. So either they have, they are, or they're getting ready to retire. So that means we're going to be looking to replace 20% of our seasoned law enforcement officers and all the experience that they bring with them. So that's something that we've been working on with our partners across the state. The next thing, I mentioned where we're located, 4190 Almsville Highway. So we are alongside 4 gated communities out here. We have 3 correctional institutions, and we also have the Marion County Animal Shelter. So a lot of people don't really know what we are. A lot of people think we are the police academy, but we're more than that. We have a 235-acre campus that we're very proud to take care of and be stewards of. 350,000 square feet of building space, which includes classrooms, training venues. So we have an actual village here that you are invited to come out after the pandemic and see. We also are active with the Chamber of Commerce. So we've hosted a number of different leadership programs here where chamber members come to get to see what we do. But we also have a dormitory here. So these are just a few quick pictures to show you a little bit about us. So our dormitories in the top left are our indoor ranges. You'll be happy to know as neighbors that we made a decision when the new academy was built that we would go with indoor ranges that shoot lead-free ammunition only. So we wanted to mitigate the impact and the footprint we create on our environment. And we also want to be good neighbors because let's face it, nobody wants to have their business or their home located next to a police pistol range. So we decided to go indoors, which allows us to shoot basically 24 hours a day. And then we also provide firefighter training. So I answer to 25 bosses. I answer to a 24-member board, which is appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. And I'm also an employee of the governor. So I'm a direct report to the governor. And if you look at this list, and I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I call this the United Nations of Public Safety. And why I share that is that all of the different stakeholders that we represent have a seat on our board. So we have police, we have fire, we have sheriffs, we have city, county, state, we have a city manager. We also have a citizen member, which is very important because we want to make sure that the citizen's voice is heard in our process as well. And then we also have a citizen member on each of our policy committees, and that person is appointed by the governor. So how we operate is very similar to a city, if you will, which has an elected board or a commission, and then there's departments that carry out their work. So our board by statute is responsible for establishing the standards for training, for establishing the standards for employment. They also decide whether or not we'll revoke or deny someone's certification. they'll decide if we issue a waiver. So a lot of times a waiver may be something like hearing and vision, where you might have a person that has a depth perception issue since birth, but they've been able to accommodate that through their experiences. So the board would give them a waiver if they could safely work in the profession. They also give us guidance and help with strategic planning, and really they're the voice of our constituent group. And then the department carries out their work. So we are in essence the labor force that makes sure that the board's direction is carried out. We also provide training here at our academy that we'll talk about. So a lot happens. So professional standards, big discussion going on right now across our country, which is who holds police officers accountable? So the answer is all of us do. And that includes all of you that are members of the Rotary. So under Oregon standards, we have cradle to grave oversight for employment, training, and maintenance. So even if a person has retired and they've been gone for 5 years, if they're involved in criminal actions, our board can and probably will take action to revoke them, not because they're currently working, but to keep them out of the profession from coming back in. We also determine if a person is qualified to run for office of sheriff. So in statute, they're required to meet a number of different elements. So we administer that. We also audit Department of Corrections training. And then we also give some of our federal powers, Oregon Arrest Authority under Oregon statutes. So the best example of that would be the Postal Inspection Service. The postal inspectors see different things going through the mail. And some of those are federal crimes, which they can handle, but some of those may be state crimes, which before this statute was approved, they had no authority to engage in that. So this, in essence, allows them to engage in enforcement for felonies committed that they are involved in. So in essence, it sealed up that hole, if you will, that was in our certification system. So you wonder, and this is what I shared, which is we all have a role. I'm going to start on the right-hand side of this slide. And the employing agency, so let's say the Salem Police Department, Kaiser Police Department, Marion County Sheriff's Office, is required under our standards to do a background investigation. It's very comprehensive. There's more than 25 items that they have to check on each individual they're looking to hire. They will hire and commission the officer. So if you will, they'll swear them in. They will impose discipline, whether or not they have a collective bargaining agreement. They will respond to allegations of misconduct. They will terminate the employee, and then they will report those actions to our agency. And then on the left side, we set the minimum standards. We are the ones that certify or license that officer, and then we enforce the standards. So if you look at this chart a different way, the right-hand side, the agency, the employer, is responsible to kick a person out that doesn't deserve to wear a badge and a uniform. Our job is to keep them out on the regulatory side. So we don't want the bad penny going to another law enforcement agency in Oregon or another law enforcement agency in a country. So we, in essence, want to cull the bad apples out of the system. And we do enter everyone decertified in Oregon into a national decertification index. So the next thing I did is a quick fast fact for you. So we went back 3 years. So we went back to August. And since August 1 of 2017, the board had looked at 180 police officers who were involved in some level of misconduct that resulted in them being terminated. And out of those 180, we took action against 67 police officers. So if you wonder what people get involved in, usually it's drug, sex, money is the easiest way to think about it. Also, social media is an issue. 4 of those 67 were women. 30 were involved in off-duty conduct. 15 officers were supervisors or above. 51 had more than 10 years of experience. 19 had more than 25 years of experience. 12 involved alcohol or drugs. 17 involved sexual conduct. 4 domestic violence, and 23 involved an element of dishonesty. And as all of you know and what you expect, in the profession of a law enforcement officer, the term is, if you lie, you die. We expect the men and women that are empowered to be police officers in our communities to be truthful and to be above reproach, and dishonesty is not tolerated in this profession, and the board takes action on that. So as we switch gears, the other discussion going on is the training that police officers receive. It's important to note that DPSST is just one link of the chain of a newly hired police officer. So City of Salem hires a new officer. They go through a background investigation. They are sworn in as an officer. They will come to the academy here in Salem for 16 weeks of training. They may choose to stay on campus or not. That's entirely up to them. A Salem officer probably will go home at night, but officers from across the state don't have that opportunity, so they will stay here with us in our dorms. But over that 16 weeks, we will teach them to be a basic entry-level police officer. So everything from writing a police report to understanding the criminal code, the motor vehicle code, implicit bias, integrity, and then the skills areas, for example, driving a car, shooting a weapon without hesitation. And what we mean by that is we build muscle memory by that. We want those officers to know how to use their weapon when necessary and also when not to use their weapon. How to engage in people in crisis, including de-escalation and defensive tactics. So all of those different elements are part of our 16-week program. And then when those men and women walk across the stage, a common misnomer is that they are magically trained to be police officers. And honestly, they have just completed the academy. Then those officers go back to their employing agency and they'll be assigned to a field training officer or a coach. And that training could take 6 to 9 months additionally, because what we don't do at the academy, the local agency does, which is, here's how the court system works in Marion County. Here's how we book a person that we've arrested in Marion County. These are the mental health resources in Marion County. We can't do that on a statewide basis here at the academy. So the field training program breathes life into that local experience, but also allows that new hired officer to meet the standards of that employing agency by learning the policies and procedures and by demonstrating their work. And then you'll see the other programs we offer here on campus, and they're not any more or less important, but I know obviously on our national basis, police training has been the big discussion that we have. So how are we funded? DPSST is funded by something called criminal fines and assessments. So if you ever received a traffic ticket, as Bartles and James would say, thanks for your support. We do not receive a general fund revenue. So your taxes that you pay do not come to DPSST. We are an other funds agency. So we, the state, use criminal fines and assessments to deliver the basic training. We use as a comparison the Kaiser Police Department. So a newly hired officer gets hired, is sent here. They would receive salary and benefits, their equipment, obviously, from head to toe, body armor, duty gear, weapon, equals about $30,000 that they've invested for that new officer to come here with us. And then the state partnership for our expenses, so meals, lodging, training, delivery, ammunition, is about $15,000. So that's per student, per class. So that's over a 16-week period. So we like to say we're a pretty good bargain, and a lot of people say we're the big box store for training. One thing I'll share with you, because we often forget to thank our veterans. So for those of you that have served, or if your family members have served, thank you for your service to our country. We have an amazing partnership with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that is that about 30 to 40% of our students, your officers, have military experience. We want to make sure that they are receiving the benefits that they have earned while serving our country. So we have a veterans coordinator come on campus once a month. They meet with our veterans that are here in training to make sure that they're getting either their Montgomery GI Bill or their post 9/11 GI Bill, because a lot of times they don't realize that they can access that while they're here, and that includes through their field training program, so they could use their GI benefit if they wish while they're here at the academy, and a lot of them do. So I just wanted to share that with you. So I know that that was a quick review of DPSST, and I think we did pretty good staying within the time limits, but I would be glad to answer any questions that you folks might have about DPSST, about what's going on in our country today, or anything else that would be within our wheelhouse.
Great, thank you, Eric. I'm going to, and Jessica will help me looking for raised hands in our participant box. So we'll give folks a second to populate questions. Oh, Cindy, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know how to make the little hand raise, so I figured I'd just use the real one. I had a question about the process of determining someone is unfit for duty, and this goes across the spectrum of your training, where do unions come involved? Because from what I know is when someone is in trouble and there's a full investigation of what may have gone wrong, the person has deemed unfit for duty and is fired, then they actually are having to rehire individuals because of after a year of litigation or whatever. So I've heard this has happened in some state agencies, and that makes me very nervous that there's power that's not written in there that is very powerful.
Sure. So what I would say is from management and from representative law enforcement in Oregon, there's no tolerance for officers that are untruthful, that are unprofessional, that conduct criminal activities. What ties into your question is honestly due process. So our bargaining units for the agencies that have them have worked very hard to enter into collective bargaining agreements that ensure that there's protections for officers from a due process standpoint. And to illustrate this, I'll use an actual case that we were involved in. We had a police officer that had falsified information on an affidavit. It didn't happen in the city of Salem, it happened up in the Portland area, but the agency terminated that officer. Unfortunately, during the grievance process through arbitration, the agency was found to have not followed due process for the officer and how they terminated them. Therefore, the arbitrator directed the agency to rehire them. So now if you think about that, you're a police chief or a sheriff, and you've just been told to rehire an officer that you fired that was falsifying an affidavit. So I don't know how much more untruthful you can be than falsifying a court document. So as a result of that, what our agency did is that we have a process where we are not bound by an arbitrator's decision if the arbitrator did not look at the conduct. So in that case, we did take the termination case forward, and we found that the arbitrator truly only looked at the letter of the law, i.e. the contract, and said you didn't follow your steps, which is 1, 2, and 3. You went from 1 to 3 and you didn't give that officer due process. Because the arbitrator didn't look at the conduct, we were able to take that case and we did decertify that officer. So a lot of times the cases that we see, and I think honestly, sometimes you just cover your nose because it really smells when you read some of these things in the paper. But if you really look inside of those cases, usually there's some kind of a structural flaw on the termination or discipline, where you find out that agencies didn't follow the policies, procedures, they didn't give due process to the officer, and as a result, an arbitrator directed that that employee get their job back. I know in some cases, and in many cases, management is very upset about that because they felt that they did their due diligence, but again, arbitrators are individuals that make decisions based on what they're reading. I also will say that the Legislative Assembly is talking about this issue because of the case that you bring up, Cindy, and some others, right? Which is that you just read these in a paper and you go, this is terrible. So the legislature wants to strengthen management side of this. But of course, Oregon is also a very strong labor state where the labor also is very active in legislative discussion. So where it goes, I don't know. But what I can tell you from the years I've been here, if the agency puts the pieces together and follows the puzzle, if you will, 1 through 5, and they have a successful termination, we will take that case and most likely decertify the officer. It's when people don't follow the puzzle pieces that arbitrators give people their jobs back.
Great. Thank you. I have one. So first off, Eric, one question is, please comment on training related to use of force.
Sure. So use of force training is a very important discussion, and I would say very important before all of the things that we saw. No one can say by watching what they saw in Minneapolis that was good police work. The actions of one and the inactions of 3 others have led to national outcry, and rightfully so. What is important to realize is that the men and women that do work as law enforcement officers do have the authority to use force if necessary and when necessary to resolve an issue. So that could be a person pointing a gun at another individual. It could be a domestic violence call where somebody pulls a knife and runs toward the officer. So there are times that an officer may have to use force. There's also many, many more times where the officer can de-escalate by communicating with the individuals about what's happening and not use force. Officers do not go to work hoping to draw their weapon or to use force. If that's the case, that's the wrong officer, right? Officers realize that what they carry on their utility belt are tools if they're needed. So we spend a lot of time on use of force training to make sure not only that people understand it, but what's the government interest, what's the legal interest, and are the actions being considered legally justified? So important issues, and in some cases we do know that use of force is necessary, and sadly in some cases deadly use of force. But again, that's not the norm, but we want to make sure officers know what they're required to do and also what their framework for the law is if they do have to use force.
Great, thank you. Marilyn Schuster, you have your hand up.
Yes, Eriks, I don't know if you remember, but before I retired, I was with Oregon OSHA. And I have to say, you were one of the most collaborative people that I had the pleasure of working with in another state agency during that time. You helped us so much whenever we were working on safety and health standards for firefighters, mostly firefighters, but occasionally for police also. So you didn't mention how closely you worked with other agencies, but you were one of the best.
Well, thanks, Marilyn, and I. It's good to see you. Yeah, and it's been a while, but thank you, and those are nice compliments. And I know, from the framework, the focus really today was going to be for law enforcement because that's the discussion. But honestly, just to kind of toggle just a little bit to the larger discussion, DPSST does with OSHA and Fire Marshal's Office and a lot of groups on firefighter training and certification. Earlier this summer, we trained 400 members of the National Guard to be wildland firefighters just in case they're needed. And guess what? They're needed. So we're in the process now working with the governor to get those folks deployed. And then we're working on a request to potentially train another 400 over the next 2 weeks if more help is needed on the fire line. So it's been a great ride and it's good to see you. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And we're running out of time, but we have several other questions. So Tim Cowan is asking what role you play, your organization, with school resource officers.
So DPSST recognizes the training of school resource officers, and we've hosted school resource officer programs, but there is no statewide standard, if you will, or license to be a school resource officer. So there's a national group called NASRO, National Association of School Resource Officers. They do a very good job of, if you will, setting up SRO programs. But really the most important part of the SRO programs is the relationship that those officers have with not only the local school district and the parents and the children in that school, but also that governing organization, right? So it's a partnership. When you put a police officer in a school, what are they going to do? How are they going to do it? What do they look like? All those different kind of things. So we know those are active discussions, especially with Salem Kaiser schools and some other, but there is training out there that really does a good job of explaining what a police officer does as an SRO, as well as what they shouldn't be doing.
Okay, great, thank you. Eric, so we have time for one more question, but would you be willing to hang on the call a little bit longer? Because there's a raft of questions. Okay,
yeah.
So I'll officially, Warren, you've had your hand up for a while. What's your question for Eric?
Okay. Hi, it's Linda. We're always here together. Anyway, I guess, addressing some of the issues that have been the key issues this summer, I'd be curious to know what your training components have in terms of racial sensitivity and understanding, working with diverse populations, especially in our pretty homogeneous environment in Salem, in Oregon.
Sure. So it's something that we spend a lot of time on, but we are also very honest that we are bringing together men and women from across the state, some of which have already had experiences with communities of color, working with people with disabilities, et cetera. And then we have other people that haven't had any of those. So, if you come out to the academy and hopefully once the pandemic is over, we'll get a chance to have you come out and see what we do. We bring in role players as well. But we have had to change the way we deliver training. And what I mean by that is that we are seeing people from 21 to 65 years old coming through the basic police course. So if you're a 65-year-old person that wants a second career, or a third career, you have a world of experiences. If you're a veteran, you've worked overseas and probably established partnerships with community members that don't really appreciate what you do if you're a service member. Not that there's a connection to being a law enforcement officer, but there is if you think about we're building partnerships on a daily basis. So that's talking to the person at the Starbucks while you're waiting for coffee, all the way to the vehicle stop when you're interacting with a person that you just stopped, to the person that is a victim of a crime that the officer is talking to. So what we've had to do is re-toggle our curriculum, because new officers coming in love having this. They love to text. Having a discussion like you and I are having is not very easy for a lot of people. So what we do now on a weekly basis is the last week, or the last day, Fridays, we call them fragment drills. Some people call it speed dating, but we have our officers engaged with role players in our village to have communications like this that builds on the lessons of the week. So if it's domestic violence, if it's ethics, if it's delivering a death notification, which is one of the hardest things an officer will have to do, is how do we talk to somebody with compassion? How do we talk to somebody in a professional tone? How do we show empathy? So we're doing that just in the basic day-to-day communication, and we build on it every week. What we've also done is woven in cultural issues, bias, ethics, all those different things that sometimes we take for granted. We can't take those for granted. So we've woven those into the training curriculum over the entire 16 weeks that those folks are here. The other thing that we've done is we've re-pivoted our program is we've moved away from death by PowerPoint. And what I mean by that is a lot of us can remember going to classes where you sat there and you couldn't wait for it to be done because the person's just reading the slides to you. What we've done is we've moved to facilitated learning, where the students have to engage, and they have to engage in role playing here on our campus. So rather than sit in a classroom and talk about domestic violence, we'll cover the law in the class and how to engage in a person that is the victim of domestic violence, but then move into the scenario village here on campus, where we're gonna bring in role players and have those new officers engage in actually talking to people that are role playing as victims of domestic violence. The same, we bring in people that are deaf and hard of hearing, and they're in the village. So an officer will have to engage in somebody that is deaf. So how do we problem solve, right? Because that's what police officers really are problem solvers and community caretakers. The one area that we struggle from a role player standpoint and from a staffing standpoint is finding people of color that want to work here. We just don't recruit from the Portland metro area. They can make more money working up there than driving down here, but that's something we have to work on because we want to make sure that our workforce and our instructor base represents the people that we serve. But we do cover ethics, bias, implicit bias. One of the things, and you folks can do this when you're done, is we use the Harvard Implicit Association Test, the Harvard IAT, which all of our students go through, so they're understanding if they have a bias. It may not be to color, it may be to sexual preference, right? All these different biases. So we have all these different things that we're doing with our students while they're here. So if you're bored, take a look at Harvard IAT and you could see if you have any biases. So, and you might be surprised. So I hope that answers your question.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. There's, I appreciate you being willing to stay on a little bit longer. There's folks that are going to hop off for their next appointment. This was fascinating and very informative. So thank you so much for sharing your work and the work of the organization with us.
Yep, glad to.
Thank you. So to wrap up our meeting, next week, the lovely Jane Griggs will be our program chair for the Willamette River Trail. So we're all looking forward to that. So Jessica, our host, I hope you can stay on a little bit and let Eric wrap up a few questions. And for those of you that need to leave to go on to your next meeting, thank you, and everybody have a great rest of your day.
And I'm good until 2, so fire away. So one question I see in the question box is about ride control, crowd control. So let me cover that one, and that is that DPSST doesn't play any role in that. Remember, we are training newly hired police officers to be a police officer. So we're not hiring them to be a detective. We're not hiring to be a motor officer. We're not training them to be a canine officer. So those organizations, and let's just be honest, in Oregon, there's only a few that have crowd control or riot control training, and those are our larger metropolitan cities. So Eugene, Portland, Salem, the Oregon State Police, Washington County, and Multnomah County are agencies that do crowd control training and have the equipment to do that, because we just don't see that type of civil disturbance in, let's say, Almsville, Oregon, right, or Amity. So those are mostly metropolitan areas, and Portland is used to having protests on a number of things. Obviously, what's going on right now is not the norm, but every election season, political rallies, you name it, Portland does experience quite a few protests, and their police department does have officers trained to handle that. So we don't do any of that here at DPSST. Another question, home rule counties. So DPSST went through that years ago with the sheriff. DPSST is not bound by home rule county. So if you have a certification with DPSST, you meet the state standards. We don't really care what your home rule says, that you have to be licensed to be a police officer, corrections officer, 911 operator. So it doesn't matter if you're a home rule county or not, you have to meet the same standard.
All right, and if that is it, then we'll wrap up. Does anyone have any questions? I'll take that as a no. Thank you so much for your presentation, and I think we will end it right there.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe, and thank you for inviting me today.